Recipient of Jaba's Breaking Barriers Award, Mr. Scott Fujita.
Bring this up a little bit, sorry. Okay, please be honest, by a show of hands. How many of you got the invitation for tonight's event and said, awesome, there's going to be a Japanese NFL player there? And then when you saw me walk up here, you thought, damn, he's not even Japanese. Don't worry, you would not be the first. If I could start with a quick story. When I was in New Orleans with the Saints, we made it to the Super Bowl after the 2009 season. We're down in Miami for Super Bowl week, and then Tuesday of every Super Bowl week is what they call Media Day. So you have media from all over the world who come in and to cover this game, and they gather them in this big sort of convention-style hall and interview players and coaches and get everybody fired up about the game. I had always had, sort of a Japanese contingency of fans and media in Japan covering my career. But none of them had ever actually made the trip to the States to cover or see me in person. So I'm there at my dais like this at Media Day, and Japanese media is running around trying to find Fujita. Where's Fujita? The Saints public relations director said, there he is right there. And I swear I could see the look of disappointment on their faces. It's like, they're like, hey, we flew all this way, we might as well talk to this guy and figure out his story. So that's really what brings me to my point tonight. It's the power of story, and it's the power of sharing our stories. And for me, as you saw in the video there, my story really begins with my grandparents, Lily and Gala Fujita. Here we are not long after the 75th anniversary commemorating, obviously not celebrating, Executive Order 9066, but it's an important time to reflect on that moment in our nation's history. So my grandparents were interned, Gila River, Arizona, and Gila River Camp in Arizona, which is where my father Rod was born in 1943. One of the things for me growing up as a white kid in a community where most of my friends were Polynesian, or Hispanic, or black, this was a story that was never shared, to any great extent in schools. And that always bothered me. I always carried a chip on my shoulder. And I said, why don't more people know about this? And I remember sharing this with my friends when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, because I just grew up knowing about the internment experience. Why isn't this story being told? And I also remember talking to my grandparents and saying, why wasn't everybody rallying to your support? Why wasn't there this upwelling of anger and support to get behind you and to stop this from happening? I learned not long after that about Fred Korematsu, and I said, where were all the Fred Korematsus? I mean, where's that guy? That's a person I want. Who's going to fight? And the answer was Shikata Ganai. And for those of you who are in the room who understand what that means, it cannot be changed. Hey, it is what it is. Just let it be. Worry about what you can control. And I was like, no, screw that. you got to find a way to fight. But what I learned over time, and as I questioned my grandparents over and over about this experience, I learned from them the power of making something good out of a really bad situation. As you saw in the video, my grandfather Nagao, he enlisted, was in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, one of the most decorated battalions in United States military history. He learned 5 languages and experience in the war. Came back to the States after the war, went to the Bolt School of Law at Berkeley, became Ventura County's first Japanese American attorney, was the president of the Ventura County Bar Association for a few years. My grandmother Lily, she viewed her time in internment camp as an opportunity to hone her skills in teaching, and teaching some of the young Japanese American students English, making the best of a really bad situation. So yeah, this sort of chip on my shoulder and the need to want to fight, I kind of transformed my thinking about this, and I said, hey, maybe there are opportunities again to make good of something that's really bad. So that brings me here to tonight, and I feel like my role in this sort of professional football world and the opportunity to use this platform, or whatever you want to call it, is to share that story, to share my grandparents' story. Because it's a powerful story, it's one that needs to be told, and it hasn't been told enough. I had a teammate in New Orleans, great guy, really good teammate, devout Christian, white teammate from rural Alabama. And one time I was in the training room having a conversation with, I think, the trainer who was giving me a stretch or whatever one of my 100 ailments were at the time. And we got on the story of Japanese internment. And as we're having this conversation, my teammate from Alabama says from across the training room, hey, my grandpa fought in World War II, and he tells me that all those Japs got what they deserved. And it was one of those like, no, you didn't moments. And clearly he didn't know my family's history, but many of my teammates and trainers in the room did. And they all kind of froze and are like looking at me like, all right, what's he gonna do now? So I took a deep breath. All right, what am I gonna do with this? I can go confront this guy, I can go pop him inside of the head, or I can go sit down and this can be a conversation. Maybe this can be a teachable moment. So I go and sit down with him. I'm not going to share his name because he's actually pretty well known. But we have a conversation, and by the end of the conversation, he says to me, Fuj, bro, he calls me Fuj. All my friends call me Fuj. No one even knows my name is Scott. They just call me Fuj. Fuj, bro, I had no idea. I had never even heard of internment. I didn't even know what the hell you were talking about. He said, my bad, man, I appreciate it. So that's the power of story that I'm talking about. That's me trying to share the legacy of my grandparents. So I'm gonna say something right now that is the complete opposite of breaking news. We're going through some pretty interesting stuff right now. I mean, in the world. I mean, there's some wacky shit going on, right? There's some weird stuff out there. But what are we gonna do about it? That's the question that everybody's trying to figure out. What are we going to do about it? How about this for an idea? Let's share stories. Let's share stories. There's power in telling stories. In this room tonight, Japanese American Bar Association. I'm so privileged and honored to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I applaud you for your steadfast and unwavering commitment to equality and to justice and to creating opportunities for the marginalized. Thank you for doing that. This room tonight, it's a room full of attorneys and judges, and I know a lot of people like to make jokes at your expense. But at this moment in our nation's history, this is your time to shine now. And this is an opportunity for you to do something and to make a difference, and we need you. Really to empower the disenfranchised, to give voice to the voiceless so they can share their stories. This is your time, and we're behind you, and we're counting on you. We appreciate you. Again, this is a big moment in our nation's history. If I can just close with this one final thought. It is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Principles only mean something if you stick by them when they're inconvenient. So for everybody in the room tonight, the ACLU, to Representative Maxine Waters, who I heard was in the room with us tonight, to everybody in this room who is fighting and is in the trenches, I have a wife and 3 daughters. I'm with you. I thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great night. Thank you.
As much as it pains me as a Trojan to do this, I'd like to give our Breaking Barriers Award to Cal Bear Scott Fujita.